Hey, it's No Huddle Fantasy Sports, and I'm coming at you with the Week 9 NFL DFS main slate plays. That's DraftKings, that's FanDuel. We're talking about the core plays, those guys you should be building your lineups around this weekend if you're looking to win in DFS. I've got you covered with the strategy, the players, and the process by which you should be constructing lineups this weekend. So if you're looking to win some cash, if you're looking to be atop of those leaderboards and take down some tournaments, stick with me as we cover it all in this video. Hey guys, and welcome back to No Huddle Fantasy Sports in the DFS Week 9 Core Plays video here on YouTube. These videos go beyond just giving you a bunch of random picks. We are focusing specifically on the strategy, the reasoning behind picking certain core players, those players that you can build your lineups around confidently this weekend in DFS. But hey, most importantly, thank you guys for finding this channel and taking a moment to click on the video and follow along. If you want to continue to support No Huddle Fantasy Sports, support myself, it's pretty simple. All you got to do is give this video a thumbs up, give it a like, share the video, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel for future videos. With all of that being said, it's important, as always, to be transparent on this channel and with our DFS picks. So I want to take a quick recap of Week 8 and see how we did with the guys we gave out. Personally, for myself, Week 8 was a good week. Nothing too great, nothing really to write home about in terms of profits, but nonetheless, we nailed a couple of picks, including the top guys on the slate. But if we look at the Week 8 recap here, Kenny Golladay, 42%. I talked about him. He was my number one receiver. Clearly went off. He was great. And the stack with Matt Stafford was excellent. Stafford was my highest owned quarterback at 37%. I had DeAndre Hopkins, Saquon Barkley mentioned in core plays, Austin Hooper, and Leonard Fournette. All those guys did excellent. They were green on my board. I also mentioned Russell Wilson as a core play, and he was my second highest owned quarterback at 26%, and also Hunter Henry for tight ends. Both those guys really didn't kill you, but they did not have good games, so that was kind of a miss there. And then big misses, we had Le'Veon Bell, Sonny Michel, Corey Davis, who was just awful, and finally John Brown. Those guys all red on my board, just did not do very well considering how much exposure and how they were recommended for core plays. But overall, it was a solid week for myself. I mentioned I didn't take down any tournaments, nothing to write home about, but it still was a profitable week. I do think moving forward, I personally will be changing my strategy a little bit. I've talked about in the past how I've been 150 max entering certain contests, and while that's been okay, I haven't had an incredible week, but I've also not had a week that's been really in the dumpster either, and that's mainly, in my mind, due to my exposure limits. I'm really spread out, so I think what I'm going to be doing moving forward is increasing exposure to certain core players. If you take Matt Stafford last week, I had 37%. He was my number one owned quarterback, which was good and it helped me. But if I would have had maybe 50 or 60% exposure to him, we'd have been talking about a different style or a different type of week in terms of profits. This, of course, naturally does lead to more of a boom or bust style of lineup construction, but I'm okay with that. The goal, of course, is to take down a tournament. And right now, with 20-30% exposure being my most, it's not really working in my favor. If you guys do anything like this, if you enter 100 lineups, 150 lineups, and have exposure limits, any tips, anything, leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And finally, before we do jump into Week 9, I have to mention we did our first giveaway here on the YouTube channel, No Huddle Fantasy Sports. I mentioned in the past couple of videos, once I broke 100 subscribers, I would be doing some style of giveaway, and we did just that. On Thursday, during our matchups video, I mentioned that I would be selecting a random subscriber that provided a comment to that video, and we did just that. So congratulations to Serve5 for winning the contest, randomly being selected. I do believe Serve5 has actually been a subscriber for a while now, provides comments on each and every video all the time. So it's awesome to see somebody that's been actively involved win the actual contest. If you're watching this video, you can either reach out to me or very shortly I'll be reaching out to you, Serve5. You got a free entry, a $20 entry into the Millionaire Maker, and we'll just go with that. We'll put a lineup in. If you win, whatever money you win from that, it's all yours. So congratulations again. I'm so excited to see a subscriber win the contest, but more importantly, so excited to see us break 100 subscribers here on No Huddle Fantasy Sports, and it continues to grow, which is awesome week in and week out. I am so thankful to you guys for continuing to give me support on here, give me likes, follow the videos, view the videos. It's all awesome. And so stay tuned, follow along. We will be following Surf 5's entry into the Millionaire Maker. I'll record all that, I'll take some screenshots, and we'll just see what happens. We might have $1 million winner this weekend come just from this channel. So continue to keep up to date with the channel. As we continue to grow, I will do more giveaways. We'll get creative here. But again, this is all about you guys. I just wanted to give a thanks back and show you guys I do appreciate all the support and where the channel continues to go. So that's 5 minutes of not talking about Week 9 DFS Core Plays. Let's jump right into the quarterback position. First up, I have Matthew Stafford listed here for Detroit. He's sitting at 6,800 on DraftKings, 7,900 on FanDuel. He's a road dog this week in Oakland with a nice total and over under a 50.5 points with a close spread. Both things we like to see when picking quarterbacks. Stafford's really been great this year and currently sits as the quarterback 2 in terms of fantasy points per game on the slate, averaging anywhere from 20 to 22 points per game. Last week, we saw him have an excellent week. We picked him in our core plays. He returned huge value, having a game of nearly 350 yards and 3 touchdowns. We're going right back to him this week against a pretty bad Oakland defense, who are allowing quarterbacks to score on average 24 fantasy points per game. That's good for number 2 in terms of the weakest defense on the slate versus the quarterback position. And finally, the Lions lost 2 weeks ago, Kerryon Johnson, and the prediction was that they would rely more on the pass. We saw players like Ty Johnson step up and play running back for them and really do nothing. I think that continues. So overall, we got a mid-tier price quarterback here in a great matchup. He's a road dog with a close spread in a high-scoring game and has some obviously excellent weapons around him. I love Matt Stafford as my number 1 quarterback again in Week 9. We're sticking with away traveling quarterbacks here, going with Jameis Winston for Tampa Bay, 6,100 on DraftKings, 7,500 on FanDuel. He's again another away underdog quarterback playing in Seattle in the highest over-under game on the slate at 53. And again, it should be a close game with a spread of only 5. Winston is simply Winston. He's not the greatest quarterback in real life, but he can put up huge numbers in fantasy. Couple things I really like about Jameis Winston this week. Number 1, he's playing on the road in a very high-scoring game that should remain close. Number 2, he is priced very favorably on both sites in that mid to low tier. But beyond that, you got to love how much Tampa Bay has been actually relying on the pass. Winston himself has seen a ton of volume in terms of passing, and Jameis Winston himself has seen a ton of volume in terms of throwing the ball. Over the last 2 weeks, you've seen 54 attempts by him and 43 attempts respectively, which of course leads to more fantasy opportunity. And I wouldn't worry, Seattle is not the defense that they have been in the past. In fact, they're a top 10 quarterback matchup this year, giving up just around 20 fantasy points per game to the quarterback position and over 273 passing yards a game. All good things we like to see when picking our quarterbacks. And finally, for icing on the cake here, I love to see that Tampa Bay is a very concentrated, predictable passing attack. You got to love that for fantasy. You stack Winston with Godwin, Evans, both of them. It doesn't matter. You know where the ball is going to be thrown to, and there's going to be a ton of volume. So again, for a very favorable price, I like both of these quarterbacks here. And really, the strategy for me this week is I'm trying to fit in expensive running backs. DraftKings in particular seems to have priced up the running back position. In order to get those guys in, you're going to have to save money. So I'm not going to the top tier of quarterbacks. I'm sticking with the middle, and I will find value elsewhere while trying to fit in good expensive running backs. Speaking of running backs, there are just some really, really expensive guys on the board this week, but guys I'm still going to try to fit in, including Christian McCaffrey for Carolina. He's seeing an absurd price tag of $10,000 on DraftKings, $9,700 on FanDuel, but to me, he still is slightly undervalued. He is basically unstoppable. Playing at home this week versus the Tennessee Titans. It's a home running back that is favored by 3.5 that continues to be the focal point of their offense. I was worried about him last week. I did not start him against San Francisco, and he still dominated San Francisco. So I am not scared of a pretty good Tennessee defense here. If you can fit him, if you can find value elsewhere, go with Christian McCaffrey and don't think twice. Beyond him, I mentioned I'm sticking with expensive guys here. Dalvin Cook for Minnesota, $9,500 on DraftKings, $9,000 on FanDuel. Again, guys that are priced up here, but it doesn't matter. Dalvin Cook is in a top 5 running back matchup this week versus the Kansas City Chiefs. He is playing on the road, which isn't ideal, but it doesn't matter. Dalvin Cook in that offense, they run the ball. Even lately, they've been passing more and more often. They still are a 53+% run-heavy team. And Dalvin Cook is the guy that gets all the usage in the backfield. Kansas City, as I mentioned, giving up 122 yards per game on average on the ground, giving up 31 points plus on DraftKings. So Cook is in an excellent matchup. Sometimes you just don't got to get cute. You find the value and you put the best players, the elite players in your lineup. And that's what I'm doing this week. The next guy I'm going to recommend here is Josh Jacobs for Oakland, playing at home against Detroit. The good news here is he's a home running back and he's a slight favorite at -2.5. He's heavily involved in their offense. I've watched him actually over the last couple of weeks. Even when he's been injured, the man has the juice. Oakland loves him. He gets the majority of the carries. He's a mid-priced running back playing at home. And more importantly, he gets 72% of the red zone carries, which I do love here. I'm going with Josh Jacobs as my mid-tier favorite running back. And finally, at no surprise, if you've paid any attention to DFS over the last week, Jalen Samuels is my value pick. In all likelihood, he is going to be the most owned running back this week, but it's just a great situation. It's an easy way to save money to fit in your McCaffreys and your Cooks. He's only $4,000 on DraftKings, $5,000 on FanDuel, playing at home in Pittsburgh against the Indianapolis Colts, which is a good defense, but it doesn't matter. There's zero competition in that backfield for Jalen Samuels. Both the starter James Conner and Benny Snell are rolled out this week, meaning there's basically no one else. Beyond that, even if they're down or there's a different game script situation, Jalen Samuels is actually a tight end in college, so he's a great pass-catching back. I love Samuels, especially on DraftKings at only $4,000 this week. I don't care about his ownership. I'm plugging him and I'm playing him this week in DFS. Moving on to the wide receiver position, a position I'm looking to save money this week, but the number one guy I'm going to recommend here is actually Chris Godwin for Tampa Bay. Yes, he is not cheap, but again, if I'm going to play Jameis Winston, I know where the ball's going to go. It's going to go to Godwin and Evans. This week, if I'm picking one over the other, which I do like both, I'm going with Godwin. He gets a ton of volume. He's averaging 24 fantasy points per game on DraftKings, 19 fantasy points per game on FanDuel, and last week was probably his floor, which is about around 10 points on DraftKings. So I do love Godwin. I love both receivers, as I mentioned. I'm pairing him with Jameis Winston when I can. Next up, I have Allen Robinson for Chicago. I really like Allen Robinson this week. He is mid-priced on both sites, but he plays Philadelphia Eagles. I've talked about it week in and week out. Outside receivers are just destroying the Philadelphia Eagles secondary. And so with that known, I'm going with Allen Robinson. He's a great receiver that just doesn't have the greatest quarterback throwing him the ball. But regardless, we've seen receivers time and time, week after week, just produce huge numbers versus the Eagles. So I love Allen Robinson for Chicago. Beyond that, he actually is still staying heavily involved in their game. 23 targets over the last 2 weeks. More importantly, 5 of those are coming in the red zone. So he is their guy. I expect big things from Allen Robinson this week for Chicago. I talked about Matt Stafford, so who are the guys I'm going to pair with him? Well, the easy ones are Golladay and Marvin Jones Jr., but I do love Danny Amendola for Detroit this week. He's a great value on both sites, and over the last 2 games, he's seen 19 targets, which has resulted in 16 receptions and 200 yards. He's becoming more and more involved in the Detroit passing game. Coincidentally, after they lost Kerryon Johnson, you're seeing more involvement of the intermediate inside receiver passing game, and that is favoring Danny Amendola every single week. But more importantly here, he is considered on Pro Football Focus the best matchup this week versus the inside receiver corner for Oakland. So you got to love that. You got to love the price, the involvement. I'm going with him in a ton of lineups this week. And finally here, I have Devontae Parker listed for Miami, another guy that's offering extreme value on both sites. He's only $4,400 on DraftKings, $5,800 on FanDuel, which allows me to save some serious money on both sites and fit in some of my major running backs. And what we're looking at here for Parker is a number one receiver, a talented receiver that just so happens to play on a pretty bad offense, but he is priced at the bottom of both sites. He has been getting targets. He has 18 targets over the last 2 weeks, which you like to see. And when Fitzpatrick is playing, you see increased value for Devontae Parker, which, of course, Fitzpatrick is playing this week. They're at home, 2.5-point underdogs. They're going to throw the ball a lot. Fitzpatrick takes risks and is clearly targeting him. For only $4,400 and $5,800 on FanDuel, I do love Devontae Parker as a value play. And we can't forget the tight end position. This is where, in week 9, I am saving money and where I'm going to find a ton of value. I'm looking at Cameron Brate for Tampa Bay and Eric Ebron for Indianapolis. Brate instantly becomes a huge value play on both sites. $3,100 on DraftKings, $5,100 on FanDuel, and that's because O.J. Howard has been rolled out for week 9. He was rolled out actually in week 8, and with that, without Howard, you saw Brate run 71% of the routes, and he had 6 targets. But beyond that, Seattle remains a top 5 matchup for the tight end position each and every week. Seattle's given up 13 to 70 fantasy points per game to the tight end position. But overall, it's just he's offering a extreme value. He allows you to fit in big, expensive players like running backs. I'm going with Brait. I'm pairing him with Jameis Winston, and I'm playing him alone. And the final guy I want to mention here is Eric Ebron for Indianapolis. Again, huge value here, 3,600 on DraftKings, 5,200 on FanDuel. T.Y. Hilton has been rolled out for Week 9. That means there's approximately 7 to 8 targets this week that have to be eaten up by other receivers, tight ends for Indianapolis, including red zone targets. Pittsburgh historically has struggled against tight ends and inside receivers. They're allowing 11 to 14 fantasy points per game this year to the tight end position. So you're looking at an extreme value here for a guy that should see increased volume, increased opportunity, especially around the end zone. I like Eric Ebron as my number 2 tight end. So that quickly covers all of our core plays for the week. Guys, we will be building our lineups around, but there's a ton of other considerations. Guys, I want to mention here. That includes Russell Wilson for Seattle against a very, very weak Tampa Bay pass defense. Tampa Bay can stop the run, but they struggle against the pass. So Russell Wilson in a great spot. We have Le'Veon Bell, a guy that has struggled over the last few weeks, just isn't getting any opportunity in that offense, which is remarkable. He should see increased opportunity, and he's against a very weak run defense. So I do like Bell a little bit. I also like Melvin Gordon, not because he's played great, but because of his price. I mean, he's a guy that was an elite back just a year ago. We'll see what happens. They need to use him more. Green Bay is a funnel run defense, meaning you win by running the ball against them. So if they use Melvin Gordon at a cheap price, I like to take a shot on him. Phillip Lindsay in Denver against Cleveland. Cleveland simply cannot stop the run. They get torched every single week by running backs. I like Phillip Lindsay. Tyler Lockett, a good guy to pair with Russell Wilson in an excellent matchup, both on paper against the defense and in terms of the cornerback he should be facing. Finally, Robbie Anderson, another guy that's in a great spot against a very weak cornerback in terms of who he should line up against. I like Robbie Anderson for the Jets. And so, boom, that takes care of the Week 9 NFL DFS Core Plays video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you get something from it. Congratulations to Serve5 for winning the giveaway. I will be getting a hold of you very shortly, and we will together get a lineup into the Millionaire Maker and see if you can win some cash. And finally, thank you guys for, again, tuning into this video, finding this channel. If these videos do help you, go ahead, give me a thumbs up. That's the way you can help support me, support this channel, and make sure you are subscribed. Outside of that, good luck this weekend. I hope to see you atop the leaderboards.